Sponsored by the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. Join us in preserving and protecting Tennessee's wildlife. All right, guys, this segment's being sponsored by Taylor's Archery. Y'all can find them at 100 East Lauderdale Street in Tullahoma, Tennessee. Or y'all can give owner Tracy Taylor a call at 931-563-7706 and let him and the rest of the team take care of all your archery needs and keep you guys going throughout the whole season. All right, welcome back. Now, if you guys want to call in tonight with any questions or comments, you can go ahead and start doing that now. Give us a call, 615-737-7767. And while we're waiting on that, we've been chatting with Tristan McCormick tonight, talking bass fishing. Tristan is fixing to head to the Bassmasters. But we've talked a little bit about how you got here, which we covered a lot of that last time you were here. But tonight I want to talk a little bit more now about just some of your favorite ways of, what has made you so successful. Obviously, you are good at going to a new body of water or somewhere that you're not familiar with, being able to pick that apart, just like you did in New York, for example, and put fish in the boat. So one of the first questions I always like to ask, because I think it's one of the most interesting, is you're fixing to go to a new body of water next week to a tournament. You haven't been up there yet, you haven't pre-fished it yet. What are you looking for? Absolute minute one, the first thing you're going to do when you take off on first practice day, what are you looking for before you ever head to that lake?
You can start by, there's so much on the internet now, YouTube, mapping. I do a lot of research on YouTube, look at the lake history, see how it's been fished in the last few years. And the biggest thing for me is the tournament results within, that month. Yeah. How they're biting, what it's taken, and I study a map a lot. I just sit in my boat for hours just looking at a map, dropping waypoints, thinking where they should be, where they could be here or there, flats, this and that, ditches. But when you go to a lake, the biggest thing to find is a pattern. Right. And that's something it's hard to accomplish. Yeah. But if you can find a pattern, and you can just run away. You can go do it all over the lake, up and down, north, south, east, west.
Right, once you find the pattern.
Once you find the pattern. Now, the pattern could be, fishing creek channel swings on the west bank. They got to be on the west bank because of the sun or how you position the fish better. So there's tons of different ways to pattern fish. And my biggest thing when I try to pattern fish is look for bait. Yeah. Look for activity. And for me, I can use my electronics, my forward-facing sonar. I can see, if there's fish swimming around. I'm around fish. It don't matter if it's bass, crappie, walleye.
So whatever. Your sonar is the big.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Because I look for life. You know what I'm saying?
Movement, everything feeding, going around. Because where there are bait fish, there are
you're gonna have
fish eating bait fish. That's right.
So it just not for bass fishing, for crappie, walleye, sauger, whatever, everything.
Now, then let's talk baits for a minute. You said earlier matching the hatch. Obviously, you always want to try to match what it is you're seeing, but are you immediately going to start with a crankbait, a swim bait? What are you probably going to start with searching, as far as that goes?
When I go to a new body of water, I like to cover water fast. The more water I can cover, the better off, in my opinion. And whether it be it's fall time, I'm going to start chunking around spook, buzzbait, whopper, plopper, whatever it could be. And that's the biggest thing is if you cover more water, you're going to eventually run into them. But say you don't. You're eliminating water in the long run, and you might, when you're fishing down the bank, you might look at your electronics and say, hey, there's a brush pile right there. Yeah. And you could come back to that tournament day, flip a jig over there, and catch you a 5-pounder off. Right. So, you're eliminating water, and you're finding water, and you're finding, like we said, a pattern.
Yeah. And I appreciate you going through that, because I just mentioned y'all in the break earlier, but all the time we hear about patterns. Any interview you see at the end of a Bassmasters event or whatever it may be is, well, I found the pattern, and I found the pattern. But a lot of times, I get asked, what is a pattern? Well, and he hit that. If you say west bank, you mentioned that. So if you find bait on the west bank, fish are hitting the top water, most likely you can go find another west-facing bank that's probably going to have bait on it and have fish hit top water.
And transition areas has a lot to do with it. You got a mud flat that's got big rock, or a bluff that comes in with big rock that changes the mud flat, or smaller gravel. Transitions play a big part right now.
They do. And one good way to look for those transitions is to read the bank. Yep. The bank will tell you if you see a big fallout chunk rock where you've had a fallout on a hillside, most likely that same fallout's out there in the water in front of you, a gravel bank transition or something like that.
And that's another good time to go in the winter when your lakes are down, like when Kentucky Lake's empty, Dale Hollow, whatever. That's when you go and prep for summertime fishing.
Yeah, it is, and you learn a lot bass fishing there too. But for you crappie guys, when that water's down
you
right
find
now,
everything there is.
Percy Priest, for example, places like that, you go find those little spots now that you can't see
and mark them
when it's time to catch them, and mark them, figure out where those are. You know, you can literally, I mean, mapping's great, but you can literally go out there right now and look
physically
at it.
see it.
You know, and it's
drop a
getting there.
waypoint right beside it.
And natural structure. You can still see some real natural big stumps and just stumps and big rocks that's still really there in the lake. A lot of the structure is washed away from just erosion and stuff like that.
Constant use on the lakes.
I mean, a lot of stumps that were on a flat, like in a cut, all the waves have absolutely washed them away.
Yeah.
So we lose a little habitat, so we got to put some habitat in.
And we have.
And you can go to the Corps and get a permit and go through the phases to help and document stuff like that.
And add fish habitat, just like Bass Nation,
but
for
make
example.
sure you check in with the Corps and get all the regulations.
Don't just go out there and start
don't go out and
in the water.
You know, a lot of people do start doing that, but you really need to go check with the Corps of Engineers and check, see exactly what they want you to do, and just, you know.
That's right.
Just make sure everything's good to go.
Now, they have been pulling water already at Priest for a little bit now, but what's the water conditions over there as far as?
It's clearing up a little bit because we haven't had any rain. It's 70 degrees, 72, get a little hot, it'll be 75. Night will drop to 68.
How much has it come down already?
It's probably 2.5, 3 foot, but now they're pulling all your reservoirs, like Cordell Hole.
Cordell, they're pulling
all that, but like Center Hill, they pull, but Old Hickory Lake never gets to a winter pool unless they're repairing docks.
I think Old Hickory Lake stays at winter pool about half the year.
Well, I know, but you know what I mean? They don't never really get to draw it down unless it's a repair.
Yeah.
So, but like Cordell Hole, they drop.
Yeah.
Dale Hollow, they drop.
And Cordell can drop quick.
I mean, in seconds.
Yeah, you can
and
be
there's
fishing
that cold
Cordell
water
and see
change.
It, you know,
the water changes so quickly because, like, you come out of the Wolf Creek up. I mean, you know, it's coming out of Dale Hollow. Then when you get below Cordell Hole, you got the Caney Fork that's just absolutely cold water.
Yeah, all the time.
And it's just loaded with
fall
fish.
fishing. I mean, it's a totally different. What would you think, Tristan, would be the biggest difference probably in fall fishing, bass, and spring fishing? I mean, you know, what's the biggest difference there, you think?
Fall fishing, in my opinion, in my head, like, it can happen in 5 casts. Because you can roll in a pocket, you can roll down a bar, and they just come up schooling. You make 5 casts, you got 20 pounds in the box.
Yeah.
Springtime, you know, you got to work hard. I mean, same thing with fall, too. I mean, it's go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And for me, I like fall fishing better because I can cover a lot of water.
Yeah.
And springtime, you know, you kind of slow down, you know, make more than one flip at a lay down or a stump or whatever. So I like fall fishing better just for that purpose of because I like to go fast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question. I know we're into fishing deep, but can you give us some rundown on some food plots or any? You don't hunt much anymore, do you?
I have hunted a couple times this year. You know, not too much. We've been setting a lot of hooks the last few weeks, but the deer hunting this year so far has looked like it's going to be fantastic. I've heard great reports, you know, from all over the state. The deer herd is strong. Obviously, in some areas of the state, it's too strong, so they're having some issues with overpopulation in some areas. But the quality, I think, is probably at or above anywhere it's ever been, in my opinion.
Well, there's definitely
in the
numbers,
state.
because that's for sure.
And you mentioned food plots. We are starting in the last week or so to see a lot more action in the food plots. They had pretty much transitioned to acorns only. You know, that happens a lot. They're still on acorns pretty heavy right now, don't get me wrong. But a lot of does just in the last week or so have really started pushing into the green fields.
Right.
And guys, you know, this is, you know, Thursday night now, so 10 days from now, you know, 9 days from now, it's going to be juvenile hunt.
Let me ask you this.
Next
Do
Saturday.
you think they're a little active? You think the bucks are looking for does?
They're starting to. You're already hearing people talk, you know, pre-rut, and they're chasing and all. And I guess if you want to be technical about it, yes, they're chasing a little bit. But what that is, it's your youngins, you know, your teenagers, and they get fired up and they want to go out there, and what they end up doing, really, they harass these does and run them around. And a lot of times you'll hear, you know, for example, the other day, Emery and I were hunting, and these does just kept blowing and blowing down the bottom of the hill. And she said, "Well, Daddy, how do they know we're up here?" I said, "They don't." I said, "There's no way them deer know we're up here." I said, "They're probably blowing at a little buck." And sure enough, a little while later, you know, they come running back across the field, and here come a little spike running them around. But you know, yeah, they're starting to chase around and push them, but you're not going to see but about another 2 weeks till it gets serious.
Let me ask you something else real quick. you got a good lease and stuff, and you manage your herd. What about like big spike deer and deer that are deformed and unmanageable deer? I mean, is this now the time to take them, or?
I mean, really, that comes down to personal choice. The fact is, you cannot really do any kind of genetic culling and pulling from a natural deer herd like you hear about a lot. You'll hear about cull bucks and things. Now, I'm not saying if you see a buck that's matured, you know, and has a rack that you don't really want in the herd, that's fine to take him out. Obviously, you're gonna cut him out from breeding anymore. What you're not gonna do is figure out what doe was half of his genetics,
right?
And so on and so forth. There's just no way of doing that. Spike bucks, you know, you used to always hear once a spike, always a spike. Obviously, that's not the case, but a lot of times those are just younger deer. If they don't have as much rack, they're usually just actually, believe it or not, born a little bit later than some of the other ones, and that makes a lot of difference in the fall, whenever they were born. Great. So, but hey, look, we got a caller here. Let's jump over here to Sean. Sean, how are you doing tonight?
I'm pretty good. How are y'all?
Doing great. We appreciate you calling.
Well, I always bass fish. I always go to Percy Priest, and I go for largemouth. I either Texas rig or throw crankbaits, and I was just wanting to know what I should be throwing out there to try to put myself in the best spot.
Sure. You got a couple great guys to answer that tonight. What's
well,
we want to go first.
Right,
I've been, you want to start throwing your little crankbait, Shad Raps 1.5s. Go down to a smaller jig, like a Bitsy flip. Don't be pulling out a big old half-ounce heavy-headed jig. And look for a little bit steeper banks. They're chasing bait on the mud flats and in the back of the pockets a little bit. But when they pull water at Priest, the fish do not like it. So you want to focus on the bluff ends. But now it's starting to cool off, so they're moving back in the pockets and stuff. So whopper, ploppers, buzz, bait, spook. And always remember, keep a flipping jig handy. If you're throwing a top water down the bait and you see a stick or a brush pile, always flip that thing. What do you think, Tristan?
I mean, you hit it on the head right there. Biggest thing for me is like the last part you just said. Always keep, you know, a soft plastic jig ready, because, like you said, might roll past a lay down, or just one little bit of stick sticking out of the water could have 5 pounders.
And that's a lot. I catch a lot of big fish off single structure
because nobody throws that.
That's right.
Nobody throws
they see the big tree lay down and cast it 20 times.
And if you get into where you see a bunch of fish chasing minnows, and it is for real bass, and you really can't catch them, we can't either. So that's what we try to get away from. You don't want to sit there, because sometimes you'll sit there and fish for them, and they're jumping for hours, you never get one. Well, that's what you go away from.
Okay. I always creek fish, I bank fish, and I always see action. I try to flip it out there. Thank you.
And look, if it's sunny and clear, they're not going to bite the top water as well. But them cloudy, rainy days, early, they're eating it up
all day.
Look, nighttime, go to night. Go at nighttime.
Yeah.
Off the banks.
Yeah, Caney Fork, striped bass, that's my jam.
I'm telling you, it's time. All that's nighttime stuff's on.
Hey, thank you for calling tonight, Shaw.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Have a great night. All right, guys, let's get ready to go over and do this week's tip of the week. This week's tip of the week's being brought to you by my buddy Wes Stone over at Crowlight Real Estate Services. Y'all can find him at 1432 West Main Street there in Lebanon, Tennessee, or you can give him a call there at the office at 615-444-8200 and let Wes take care of all your real estate needs. All right, guys, tonight's just been one big tip, but what do we got right now for tip of the week?
We can do both, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you go to the lake and you do not keep your reels full of line, if that reel says 6:3 ratio, that's based on your spool being full. And if it's halfway full, you're not getting any ratio.
Yeah.
Spinning reel or bait caster, so always, always keep your reels full of line. And maintain your stuff, you know, grease them up, check them. Take care of them.
People take care of their guns, and they let their reels lay over
reels ain't cheap and stuff no more.
No, they ain't. Anything you want to add, Tristan?
Yeah, I mean, my tip of the week, I just got done fishing in Nebraska, and at the halftime, I was down big time. And my tip of the week is keep your head in it and never give up. Because it could happen in 5 casts, 5 minutes, whatever. And if you keep pushing, keep fighting, make that last cast, I mean, just take it till the end, and it could happen.
That's right. Great tips. Well, guys, we're going to get ready to take another quick break. We'll be right back with some more Southern Woods and Waters.